Geoverse Part 2 To Love is Human by GeodesicDragon. Chapter 8 The Waiting Game Part 2. As I looked at the great damn sky, I thought about what the weather was like in Ponyville. No doubt Rainbow Dash had cleared all the clouds, leaving behind the brilliant blue sky I enjoyed so much. I was standing outside the laboratory enjoying what fresh air I could. Although it wasn't as fresh as the equestrian air, I still took the time to savor it. It was certainly a hell of a lot better than being stuck in the stuffy lab all day. It was day 2 of our 3-day wait, and I was bored. To John and I's dismay, Sorrow had mastered the PS3 within hours and kicked our asses at everything we played, leading to me smashing the console in a fit of rage. He was right. I am a sore loser. Having grown sick of the Xbox, there wasn't much else for me to do but watch the sky and think about various things. I did the latter a lot. I thought about what I was going to do when I got back to Equestria. I thought about how John would cope with the sudden change of scenery. I thought about what Dr. Sorrow would get up to. But most of my thoughts were about how I was going to spend the rest of my life with Twilight. I cursed myself for somehow losing the golden band I was going to give her when I proposed. It meant a lot to me, as it was the very embodiment of how I felt. That, and it cost me a fucking fortune. The door to the laboratory opened with a creak. John stepped out into the cool morning air, followed closely by Sorrow. The latter took a deep breath and smiled. "It's been a while since I've been out here," he said. "I get so caught up in my work I don't have time to take a break." John laughed. "It's good to be out of the lab," he said. "Doc, you really gotta fix the air conditioning down there." Sorrow opened his mouth to reply, but I spoke first. "What's the charge level at now?" I asked. 58%, Sorrow replied, turning to face me. "It turned out the air conditioning was leaching a lot of power, so by turning it off I was able to speed up the charging of the stabilizer, albeit at the cost of personal comfort." John narrowed his eyes, but said nothing. "So we can hopefully go to Equestria tomorrow?" I said hopefully. Sorrow nodded. "Provided the charge keeps up at its current rate, then I see no reason why not," he said before snapping his fingers. "I need to go make sure Tiny has everything he needs. I don't want the little guy to go unprepared." John and I looked at each other and shrugged as Sorrow ran back into the lab, the door slamming shut behind him. "So," John said, "are you excited about getting back there?" I looked at him with a neutral expression on my face. "What do you think?" I said before breaking out into a grin. John shuffled his feet. "Sorry, just making conversation," he said sheepishly. "So, what's it like?" "What, Equestria?" I replied. "It's wonderful." "You haven't really told me much about it," John said. "All you've told me is how you got there. I want to know about the place I'll be moving to." I chuckled nervously. "Yeah, I kinda did leave out some details, didn't I?" I ran a hand through my hair. "What do you want to know?" "Well, I guess I should know more about Twilight and her friends for a start," John said with a smile. I chuckled again. "Take a seat," I said, "because there's a lot to tell." John sat down and I cleared my throat. Twilight Sparkle is the librarian in Ponyville, the town where she lives. She's a unicorn, meaning she can do magic, and she's damn good at it too. She studied magic under Princess Celestia, one of the rulers of Equestria. John nodded. She was sent to Ponyville by Celestia to study friendship. She soon learned that she and her 5 friends each represented an element of harmony. A puzzled look appeared on John's face. The elements of harmony are the most powerful weapon in Equestria. They are capable of defeating foes with the power of friendship. The 6 elements are kindness, generosity, loyalty, laughter, honesty, and magic. Twilight, as you probably guess, represents the element of magic. John smiled to show that he understood. Applejack is honesty, Rarity is generosity, Fluttershy is kindness, Rainbow Dash is loyalty, and Pinkie Pie is laughter. Together they were able to defeat a villain known as Nightmare Moon. At that moment they realized that they were going to be good friends. "I see," John replied, his hands on his chin. "Okay, tell me about the other 5. Start with, Applejack." Applejack, like Pinkie Pie, is an ordinary Earth pony. Earth ponies can't do magic or fly like Pegasi can, but they make up for it with increased strength. Applejack runs her own farm, Sweet Apple Acres, which grows apples for consumption, and cider. John's eyes lit up at the mentioning of cider, and he licked his lips. Applejack's family consists of her grandmother, Granny Smith, her big brother, Big Macintosh, and her little sister, Apple Bloom. I don't know about her parents. Apparently she doesn't like talking about them. I'm not sure why. John nodded and motioned for me to continue. Rarity is a unicorn like Twilight. She's a fashion designer and runs her own shop, the Carousel Boutique. She's a very generous pony and will often put her friends before her clients. She has a little sister named Sweetie Belle. John chuckled at the name of Rarity's sister. Rainbow Dash is a Pegasus. Pegasi are born to fly, and Dash is no exception. She is capable of flying at speeds so intense she can produce a sonic rain boom, which is a sonic boom, but with color. She is fiercely loyal to her friends and will do anything to help them, even if it means getting her hoofs dirty. John's eyes widened when I mentioned the sonic rain boom. Fluttershy is also a Pegasus. True to her name, she is rather timid, but she's the sweetest pony you could ever hope to meet. Unlike other Pegasi, though, she doesn't care much for flying. John raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She's extremely kind, especially to animals. She takes care of a lot of sick and injured creatures and cannot tolerate anyone hurting them. If the situation calls for it, she can shed her timid nature and become a force to be reckoned with. Twilight told me she stood up to a dragon once. A fucking dragon! John nodded slightly, a look of respect on his face. Finally, there's Pinkie Pie. She's the most random of Twilight's friends, but she's great nonetheless. She's a great laugh, and her parties are to die for. In fact, it was after one of her parties that Twilight and I first kissed. I smiled at the memory. Pinkie is a bit erratic, but she's still a good friend. Always there with a smile and a sympathetic ear. She doesn't let anything get her down, and if it does, she's very good at hiding it. John applauded. "They sound like they're a terrific bunch," he said. "I hope they'll grow to accept me as a friend in time." "They will," I said, patting him on the back. "After all, you're my friend, and if I trust you, so will they." John smiled, stood up, and embraced me. "That's all I needed to hear," he said quietly. He pulled away from me and smiled. "Come on, let's go see what the dog's up to," he said. And with those words he led me into the laboratory. Twilight kicked open the library door and threw herself onto the couch. She looked at the ceiling and sighed. "Maybe the princesses are right," she muttered. "Maybe he isn't coming back, and that I should stop hoping." Her eyes widened in shock as she slapped herself. "Don't think that way," she scolded. "I can wait for him all I like, and just pretend to the others that I've moved on." A smirk spread across her face as she contemplated her plan. But the others might try to set me up with some pony in the future." She clapped her hoofs together with worry. "Mind you, they probably won't try that for a few months. It would be rather insensitive for them to do it so soon." A small sigh of relief escaped her lips. "So, that's what I'll do," she giggled. "I'll put on the broken mare act in front of my friends, but behind closed doors I'll be more hopeful than I've ever been." In the darkness of the library her giggles soon turned into laughter. As John and I helped Sorrow load Tiny with various pieces of equipment, my attention was drawn to the robotic camera in the corner of the room. It was this camera that helped the doctor to explore Equestria while he was working on his stabilizer. It was this camera that took all the photos I was looking at earlier, including the picture of Twilight. She had been walking through Ponyville's market, oblivious to the strange device overhead, though the fact the camera was disguised as a bird would have had something to do with that. "So, Doc," I asked, "what do you call those robotic cameras of yours anyway?" "Oh, they're birds," Sorrow replied, as he loaded Tiny with construction materials. "That makes sense," I replied, "to call them birds." "I didn't call them birds," Sorrow replied with a deadpan stare. "But you just said they were birds," John said, a confused look etched on his face. "No, I didn't call them birds," Sorrow said huffily. "Well, if they're not birds," I said gruffly, "what the hell are they?" "They're birds," Sorrow said proudly. "It's an acronym. It stands for Bionic Investigative Robot Devices." "So," John said sheepishly, "they are birds." "No, they're birds," Sorrow replied, his eyes narrowing further. "That's what I said," I snapped. "No, you called them birds," Sorrow said, sighing heavily. "They're supposed to be called birds." "I don't see the difference," John yelled. "Of course not," Sorrow replied. "Your eyes are photoreceptors with natural lenses, designed to bend light into an image your brain can comprehend. You don't hear with your eyes. That'd just be silly." We stood in silence for a while, as we stared each other down. Eventually, John and I gave up. We knew better than to get into an argument with a guy who probably knew several ways to kill us and not leave any evidence, and who had a giant robot tank as a pet. "What's the charge level at?" I asked, trying to break the tension. Sorrow's eyes returned to normal as he glanced at the control panel. 86%, he said with a smile and looking at John. "I knew turning off the air conditioning would help." John stuck his tongue out and used a hand to fan his face in a sarcastic manner. "So tomorrow, then?" I said. "We can try tomorrow?" Sorrow nodded. "Hopefully," he said. "We'll get super lucky and the first portal we open leads to Equestria." "And what if it doesn't?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "It's another 3-day wait for the stabilizer to recharge before we can try again," Sorrow replied. I sighed. "Well then," I said, "I hope that Lady Luck is in a good mood tomorrow, because if I have to wait 3 more days, I'm probably going to kill myself and see if that works." John looked at me blankly and groaned. "It'll work," he said reassuringly. "It has to." "Why?" I asked, looking at him with a blank stare of my own. "Because you want it to, more than anything else in the entire fucking world," he said, prodding me in the chest. "Yeah, you're right," I said. "Why the fuck am I being so apprehensive about this?" John nodded. "It'll work," I said, the volume of my voice increasing. I looked up at the ceiling and raised both arms above my head. "It'll work because I say that it'll work," I shouted. "Nothing will stop me from getting back to Equestria." I slammed my fists down against my sides. "Nothing!" I looked at the control panel. It was saying 90%. A smile spread across my face. "Tomorrow is the day of reckoning," I said. "And I reckon that by this time tomorrow," I looked towards John, then to Sorrow, "I'll be snogging Twilight's face off." Author's note. Holy crap, 2,159 words, not including chapter number, title and this note. And most of it is dialogue as well. Thanks to Crimson Star for writing the part about Dr. Sorrow's robotic camera. I wanted to include it somewhere since he did take the time to write it, and because it's funny.